Well, they have Austin's report, which he filed in on the 11th of April, the day the elections held. And now we have Moyo Ogunlewe, who is the Lagos State House of Assembly's candidate for Kosofe Constituency 1. He's a member of the PDP. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
In addition to the report that we've seen, I mean, you were there, you were the candidate. What happened?
Well, on the day of the election, if you can recall, there was a lot of crisis in the morning because 2 ballot papers were missing from the World Collation Center, basically, before it was distributed to the polling units. And then alarms was raised. And then I can remember that you made a call through to the Commissioner of Police concerning that particular incident, and he said nothing of that such happened. It really happened. 2 ballot papers were missing. The EO, Mrs. Olashowe, signed that 2 ballot papers were missing, and also...
If you mean 2 ballot papers, you mean 2 single sheets?
2 bunch of ballot papers were missing.
2 bunches?
2 bunches of ballot papers were missing.
In other words, the packs that they come in?
The packs were missing before the election started, yes.
Were missing?
Yes.
How many are normally in that?
100.
100, okay.
Okay.
That makes it 200. They were missing.
Were they eventually found?
No.
But the elections went on?
Yes. They were protesting that those ballot papers were missing. So they called me and they said, am I going to go? I said, why not? Go on with the election, but as long as the APC agents and the PDP agents sign, then fine, then we can go.
How did you know that those were missing?
Because when you start distributing to the polling units, so that was where they found out that I was missing.
Okay,
and they both signed to ascertain the veracity of the missing bundles of ballot papers.
Yes, they signed.
Your agent,
my agent, the APC agent signed, and also the EO signed. Mrs. Olashowe signed.
So why is everyone complaining?
Well, the question is
signed.
No, the question is where are these ballot papers? That went on. Then the election continued. Then after, when it was time for collation, I found out I was leading in over 1,260 votes, and then forwards. What happened was they brought in results from Ifakok at about 4 a.m., 5 a.m. in the morning, delaying the results because it was manipulated. You can see Ifakok, majority of the polling booths in Ifakok had ballot papers from Amu or Dofi. Where did that come from? So I'm challenging the results, and I'm not satisfied with it at all.
The question is, if you say that 200 single ballot papers were missing initially, and nobody could account for that, and that was noticed before the process started, did those ballot papers turn up after the elections?
I can't know that because
I'm asking that because if we have an idea of how many ballot sheets were provided at the beginning, we should have an idea of, and I think that happens in every polling unit, how many were used in every polling unit and how many were not used. Exactly. I think that they usually know that figure. So were you also interested in that figure? Did you take into cognizance to know whether or not those 200 ballot sheets all of a sudden appeared at the end of the collation exercise?
Thank you. What she said, that before the elections could go on, that they were going to sign on all the ballot papers. Mm-hmm. That was why the agents, the PDP agent and the APC agent signed, and she also signed as well. Mm-hmm. So getting to the polling booths, we found out that none of the papers were signed. None of the ballot papers were signed. But we allowed the election to go on because she said that.
Who was going to sign? The agents or the...
The EO said because 2 bunch of ballot papers were missing, that she was going to sign on all the ballot papers. So in case they bring those, the papers that were stolen, then we'll find it out that it was. But when we got to the polling booth, we found out that none of these papers
were. Do you know how many sheets were deployed? For instance, how many ballot papers were deployed to the region where you voted? If you already know that 2 were missing, how many then were left?
From 079 of the ballot papers were missing, because from the World Collation Center you distribute 2 to the polling booths. Mm-hmm. So it was from there they found out that 2 were missing, and she also affirmed it that 2 were missing, and that was why we allowed the election to continue.
How did the accreditation process go?
It was okay. The accreditation process was okay to me as far as I'm concerned, because where I voted it was all right. I did my accreditation, went back home, then came back to vote. It was okay to me.
What about the voting itself?
The voting was all right, but there were a lot of irregularities in some other places. double voting, and some other things happened.
So what's your case then, that those two bunches of ballot papers were not there?
No, my case is that ballot papers from Amuwo Odofin, they found in ballot boxes in Ifako Bagada.
Were they in what quantity? Was it substantial enough to have tilted the vote?
It was a lot, because as of now, he's only leading with 87 votes. So ballot papers were missing one. Secondly, ballot papers from Amuwo Odofin were found in some polling booths, which I will not mention because of my election tribunal.
Just double checking. How many votes did you poll, and how many did he poll?
18,000 and 18,000 something. But
that's him.
87.
18,842. Yours was what?
18,000. The difference is 87.
755. Okay.
87.
That close. And you know, on that particular election day, I'm still going back because those bundles of ballot papers that were missing before the start of that particular election, you say your agent actually signed, and that of the APC also signed to say, well, we didn't get these two bundles. And the EO had promised that she was going to append her signature on every ballot paper given out, which she never did. And finally you found out that because these were coded, you know, color-coded ballot papers, and the ones meant for another local council was found in your council.
Yes.
When that happened during collation, you raised that out. You raised that point.
Yes.
And what was the comment you got from INEC?
What she said, she was quiet about it, and she said they had to keep counting or whatever.
No,
because I wasn't at that polling.
Were those part of the ones that were cancelled?
No.
You know, there were some valid and invalid votes, because if you found another ballot meant for another location, in your own location, did they count as valid votes?
They did. They counted it. They counted it because I wasn't there. It was my coalition officer, Akabashon, that was there, and he noticed it, and he I think he told the INEC official there. But
and some of those that were found to be from another local council, were they votes for your party, for you, or against you?
Against me.
All of them?
All of them. It wasn't mine. It wasn't mine.
But do you have an idea how many they were? Because if you say the difference is 87, how could you prove then that those ones that you found contributed, or to a large extent, tilted the votes?
You can have an idea of such papers, but what I'm doing is I know the exact polling booths where those papers were used, and that's what I'm going to use.
Did he win in those exact polling units where they were used? Did he win?
Yes, he won.
He won in all of those.
He won with 116.43, like that. 127.34.
That kind of difference.
Yes.
In those polling units. And did the INEC official there raise it that, you know, maybe they ran out of ballot papers?
Okay. Even if you ran out of ballot papers, Amuwo Odofin is too far from Kosofe, and then we should know about it before you bring ballot papers.
That's what I'm asking. Did they raise any such objections?
Nothing like that.
They didn't.
They did not.
Now, when people were also voting, did your agents, because I'm sure you had agents there, you didn't notice anything untoward in those polling units?
Yes, they did. They did, and they made a complaint to.
What did they notice?
They made a complaint to the what's it called, the presiding officer.
But what I'm asking is, for instance, I know that at every polling unit they look at the number of accredited voters.
Exactly.
Were those people duly accredited, and did all of them duly vote? Did the numbers correspond at the end of the day with the numbers, or did they all of a sudden notice that there was a sudden jump from those accredited, you know, to the number of...
I'll also come in there. The numbers of accredited voters, the numbers of voters were more than the numbers of accredited voters.
In all the polling units?
In those polling units from Ifako Sholi specifically.
Interesting, but they ought to have been cancelled.
That's the problem, and that's why I think that was why the youths were protesting, basically, because they got information.
But the youths weren't protesting in Ifako. They were protesting in Ojota. Because
that's where the collation center is. That was where the collation center was going on.
How did it get violent then?
Well, what happened was that immediately they finished voting, because majority of them were my my polling agents, and then they came to the house with their results, because we were actually collating in the house, and I told them that, you know what, leave the house and go to the venue and protect your vote, because we already had information that they were voting in some other places, like the markets, Binokono markets and some other places. So I told them, you know what, go to the venue and stay there and protect your vote. So I think what happened, they were doing a peaceful protest, and then all of a sudden, some guys came from Oworo, from K2 and some other places, and then that was how the whole thing started. Because if you see, they had a peaceful protest because the policemen were there, and then there was no attack. There was no attack on the youth. So I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I just heard that there's a lot of trouble going on.